Hello and good afternoon. We are into a cargo work session. We will have a look at what is called steel cargoes. Could be packed or unpacked, could be packed or wrapped, or could be open, exposed. Packed ones could include pre-stressing wires, tire cords, high tensile wire rods, which are called wire rods. These are wrapped in strong waterproof material to prevent against moisture damage. Cold rolled steel and hot rolled steel, another type. Coated steel, which could be galvanized steel, aluminized steel, or paint coated steel. These are different types. You could also have tin plates shipped in coils on wooden gratings. Different types. The packing, if it is wrapped, is only done to protect the product from damage, atmosphere, and moisture. That is the only idea. Damage done during handling. Then to protect it from handling damages, this is packed or wrapped. If it is wrapped, it's not necessary that it will be always wrapped. It could be an exposed cargo. These are some types of the steel cargo which ships are involved in transportation. Large diameter steel pipes, ends may be swagged or protected. Very common from Malaysia, Kuantan, etc. Large diameter steel pipes. You could have coiled steel wire rod. It is called wire rod in short, wire rod. coiled wire steel rod, and of course cold rolled steel and hot rolled steel. Questions have been asked related to steel coils, so we will devote some time to steel coils itself. A lot of questions being asked for steel coils. Or you could have simply steel plates stacked athwart sets, of course with dunnage and flashed. Steel billets, steel ingots, and some other types. They keep figuring in the steel carriage. You may have any kind for you transport. As usual, the question will involve planning, stowage, carriage, and discharge of steel cargo. These are some examples of finished steel product. Please remember, cold rolled coils is a finished product. These coils will not be processed further. They will be simply unwound and used. They are rolled coils, but they are cold rolled. So they simply go as a finished product. Please remember, in all kinds of steel, a pre-survey is required. Pre-loading survey. Cold rolled steels are used as finished steel product and can be transported in form of coils weighing from 2 tons to 28 tons. Usual stow is athwart ship. Hot rolled coils, on the other hand, is not a finished product. These are usually unwound and then cold rolled again. This is further processed. Cold rolled steel is expensive. It is a finished product. And then we were talking about this coiled wire rod, wirer. It is called wirer. This one. Normally referred to as wirer in common language. It is called wirer. Very common product, ex Brazilian ports, wirer. Again, the preloading survey is definite there. Yes, preloading survey. Because it is a product, steel is a cargo which gives rise to claims. Because if there is any rust formation after it is being discharged, then the blame goes on the vessel. Therefore, a preloading survey is necessary to ensure that it was carried accordingly as loaded. Then of course you could have profiles, simply called profiles like this. Long steel bars. They could be hot rolled or cold rolled. Or you could have channels like this. As you can see, in all the products which we have seen up till now, a preloading survey is required. very, very essential. It is one of the precautions. When we talk of precautions for planning or storage, preloading survey is to be mentioned. All steel has to be preloaded survey. Preloading survey has to be carried out. Now this survey could be done either by the ship owner or could be done by the charter or cargo owner or could be done jointly. Irrespective, as far as ship is concerned, ship owner is concerned, these surveys are undertaken by P&I Club. Lot of things. Can you mute yourself where there is some background noise? Keep yourself muted, please. More examples: girders, plates, reinforced bars, etc. These are all different types of steel, but all of them are coming under the title of finished product, finished steel product. When we say finished steel product, it simply means after discharge it is going straight to the factory for where it is used in different ways to manufacture. Rough finish is there for reinforced bars. Rough finish, therefore, it is not required to be surveyed. Preloading survey is not required here in this product. But having said that, maybe a shipper or a consignee may like to have a preloading survey done, but not recommended. Not recommended, but it may be done because there are a lot of claims against steel products. So even the ship owner would like a preloading survey done to safeguard himself from claims. And the list is quite endless. All the ones which are carried by ships: small diameter pipes, large diameter pipes, coated steel pipes. Coated steel pipes are again a product which is finished but requires very careful handling because the coating may get damaged and a claim can arise. Large diameter coated steel pipes are used to lay across the Black Sea for carriage of oil, transport of oil. And then miscellaneous products like ingots, slabs. This is called bloom. Flows from one end, it is called bloom. As you can see already, there is some mill scale on top. Therefore, it is recognized that a preloading survey for this type of cargo is not required. Since this is further processed, therefore, a preloading survey is not required. But as I said, there could be a consignee or a shipper who may want it. Then, of course, will be done. Not recommended, but it could be done. Yeah, will come surveys. So there could be another example of not packed or not wrapped. This is coming like beams, angles, flats, channels, reinforcing bars. They are not wrapped. They're not wound. I mean, they're not put in any gunny bag or anything. No wrapping. This could be also a product carried, not packed or wrapped. As you can understand, wrapped product, packed product will have more freight and will be more claimable against damages. When it is not packed or not wrapped, then it is understood that some amount of damage is acceptable to the shipper. Including scrap, which is uh, cargo which can damage the bulkheads of the cargo hold. But there, this is also a cargo. Normally, this one is the one the ship owner loads once he is decided to maybe sell off the ship, because heavy damages due to scrap iron does take place. As usual, there is a concern about oxidation of the steel which you are carrying and self-heating. The cargo is not flammable, but when it is reacting with oxygen, producing rust, it may, you know, be exposed to self-heating. Then, of course, regarding the precautions to be taken, one of them is ventilation. Definitely, all steel products need to be prevented or taken care of from contact with seawater. One of the more important precautions is planning the store. Planning. Storage plan has to be drawn up and then agreed upon. Normally, as usual in every port, the stevedores are in a hurry to go, but not without approval of the storage plan. So this is one of the precautions you have to mention when you're talking precautions to be taken while planning. While planning, a storage plan has to be drawn up and approved. Notwithstanding the fact, which is very common, that stevedores might be getting paid by weight of the cargo. So they will be in a hurry to load because they get paid by the tonnage they have loaded. So you will have to stop them if they are doing it in a hurry. So storage plan to be drawn up and agreed upon before you can actually start. This is one of the precautions. Because storage plan will also ensure that the vessel has taken into account the center of gravity of the cargo which is being loaded. Because it is a heavy density cargo, it is going to bring down the CG. So the hold is going to get volumetrically not full but by tonnage. Therefore, planning is absolutely essential. You may have a surveyor attending, which is called the cargo surveyor. He may be hired by the P&I club, he may be hired by the ship owner, or he may be hired by the charterer himself. In which case, the services of the surveyor can be taken to check the storage plan. Loading wet cargo is a no-no. So this also has to be made sure that the cargo is sound and dry on ship. Wrapped or packaged cargo must not be left uncovered. or loaded during rain. The very fact that the cargo is wrapped means that it is recognized that this cargo has to be protected from rain. Therefore, it cannot be loaded in rain, number one, and number two, it cannot be left uncovered on the quay. On the other hand, non-packed or non-wrapped cargo might be left open and be loaded in light rain. This is acceptable. This is acceptable provided it is going as a record that this was loaded during light rain, and then of course it is also very understood that it is not going to be loaded into the same hold as dry products. Some other cargo may be requiring dry carriage, then wet cargo or exposed cargo cannot be loaded in the same hold. There is a very common remark which goes and should be remembered by you for steel cargo. A remark which goes like this: wet before shipment. This is a normal remark to be put on maid's receipt for any wet cargo. Wet before shipment. To prevent against water, affecting the cargo, all the hatch covers and other deck openings should be closed in good time to prevent rain getting into the cargo. If there is a rain period, it should be recorded, clearly recorded, to express in the statement of facts later on, which means that it is going to go in the ship's logbook from where the statement of SOF will be made, and this has to be carefully noted down in the SOF also. The timings of rain. Do not mix the cargo, steel cargo, with incompatible cargo, which is exampled as chemicals, fertilizers, sulfur bearing materials, which may give out some acidic water or something, which can harm the cargo, which can harm the steel cargo rather. Another precaution will be naturally because of the heavy weight of the cargo, low density will be an issue. It is a high density deadweight cargo, so the danger of tank top getting overloaded is always under the consideration and should be avoided, of course. Permissible tonnage should never be exceeded, and ideal storage position for steel product is the bottom of the vessel on the tank top. Not only the tank top, but places where the solid flows are running below the tank top. Solid flows, like in DB tanks, are running below the tank top. That is the ideal place. Reinforced, not reinforced now, but by built only. Where flares, where plates cross each other, that part is more strengthened. So the ideal stowage will be on the tank top, where you have plates crossing each other and welded. So this is one way to come to a conclusion. What is the permissible tonnage allowed? First of all, you should be knowing what is your load density tons per meter square of tank top. That if you know that, then you calculate by using area of the tank top into this. Area of tank top in meter square into tons per meter square. So meter square and meter square will cancel out each other and permissible tonnage will be coming out in tons. But normally the tank top strength is supplied by the shipbuilder and approved by the class. Again, it could be an understatement that the figure will remain unchanged because by a period of years, maybe it will reduce. Over the period of years, scantling's strength of the scantling can get reduced. The older the ship, the more caution should be exercised, which means a greater safety margin should be used. Older ships means more precaution regarding tank top strength because over a period of years, although when she was built, the tank top strength was so much, it might have got reduced. You can safely assume that the tank top strength is lower than what it was when she was actually built. One way to exercise caution is to use tonnage to spread the weight over a larger area, meter square area, could be used to adequately spread the weight and avoid spot overloading. That is one way. Use tonnage extensively spread over the tank top to reduce the meters, to reduce the overloading or point loading or at a single place. So this can be another precaution to be used and mentioned, the spread and use of tonnage to spread the weight evenly over the tank top. It is a possibility like this that steel coils may be provided with steel channels, this one, to prevent edge damages like this. Steel channels have been rigged along so that when the wires, change, etc. is passing, it will not damage the edges of the steel coil. This could be used for lifting, this is only for binding. But in any case, channel has been provided to stop or prevent any damage to the coil itself, edges of the coil. You may note that if edges are spoiled or if edges are chapped, this also poses a claim. Similarly, in cold roll steel, which is a finished product, this is unwound and used straight into the factory for whatever purpose it wants to be used. So the coil cannot be damaged and the edges are prevented against damage by providing channels, steel channels. For the manufacturing purpose, just for our information only, we are not going to be involved with the manufacture, but carriage yes. Hot rolling is a process which will involve rolling the steel at very high temperature, maybe over 1700 degree Fahrenheit. This is above the steel's recrystallization temperature. When the steel is above this temperature, it can be shaped and formed easily. Steel can be made into larger sizes. Hot rolled steel is cheaper than cold rolled because it is often manufactured without any delays in the process. No delays, it is a quick process, therefore, the reheating of steel is not required. But in cold steel, it is requiring reheating. Where is it used? The hot rolled used in various places, but more importantly, welding in construction trade, railroad tracks, I-beams, etc. Precise shape and tolerances are not required. Cold rolled steel provide definite shapes, precise shapes. But this one can be used if precise shapes and tolerances are not required. At that place, a hot rolled product can be used. So the manufacturing involves a process where most of the iron's carbon is removed, producing a tougher and more ductile material. Manufactured from iron during the process, steel manufactured from iron where carbon is removed from the iron to make it more tougher and more ductile. Ductile means which can be drawn into a shape. So the steel is a byproduct actually, if I can use the word byproduct of iron ore rather. This involves heating, coke, limestone, oxygen and scrap material. Manufacture takes place of course in a furnace, which could be basic oxygen furnace and could be electric arc furnace. Of course nowadays this is more prevalent, electric arc furnace. Then of course the steel is further processed after leaving the furnace, improve the quality before it is cast into slabs, ingots, etc. Whatever the product is required. Before casting it, it is further going into secondary process to improve quality. During hot rolling, steel product is formed, yes. But during cold rolling, the product is improved and ready for sale, ready for use. Cold rolling. So that is why cold rolled steel is more expensive. It is a finished product. This is a formation or process for hot steel forming coil. Electric arc, and then this is a finished product. Hot rolled coil after rolling. First it is flattened out and then rolled. Then it is called a hot rolled coil, which is HRC. So very simply, steel that has been rolled when hot is known as hot rolled coil. Steel which has been rolled when hot and coiled is known as hot rolled coil HRC. Cold rolling is the final step. Means after cold rolling the steel is ready for use. Cold rolled thin sheet steel can be coiled again, which is called cold rolled coil. This is a finished product. Because hot rolled coil is to undergo a further manufacturing process, therefore this HRC has to be delivered free from all excessive rust, etc., and physical damage. Cold rolled steel is not required to be further processed and can be unwound straight away to make use in car body parts, steel panels, etc. Steel, cold rolled steel is actually delivered to the receivers in pristine means in the top order condition, ready for use. While HRC, hot rolled coil, is unwound and then further processed. Yeah, we come to this one, the actual tarika of loading. Cold roll is essentially hot rolled steel that has been further processed. The process includes the hot rolled steel processed by cooling further at room temperature and annealing. It is a wider range of finish surface or finished product. Cold drawing increases the tensile strength and polishing improves further. Polishing improves the surface finish when cold rolled. Therefore, it goes directly to the factory where it has to be used as a finished product. Now, of course, there is one issue here. The cold finished bars are harder to work with because of increased carbon content. Any project where tolerances, surface condition, consistency, straightness is required, then you have to use cold rolled steel. Where you require finish precision, where you require precision steel, then you use cold rolled. This is a theoretical difference. Hot rolled and cold rolled. Hot rolled is at its final dimensions while hot enough, which is about 1700 degree Fahrenheit, while cold rolled is rolled to final dimension well below the scaling temperature. So Now you want to make a half-inch square hot rolled steel, then it is required to estimate what the final size will be after the product cools. But if you are doing it with cold roll, then you can come to this dimension easily, sizing rollers or whatever you want. So actually speaking, whether the finished product, hot rolled or cold rolled, इसका intention क्या है? What is it going to be used for? Is going to decide whether the shipment will be a hot rolled product or a cold rolled product, depending on what it is going to be used finally. Then, of course, as we have talked about, dunnaging is absolutely essential because this is finished with steel, and steel to steel contact, because the tank top will be steel, should be avoided. To increase friction, use dunnage, and also to spread the weight, to increase the load density, spread of the load. Most importantly, steel to steel contact is not allowed and not recommended at all. So you use dunnage wooden boards to avoid steel to steel contact of steel and tank top, also to increase the spread area. For let us say coils up to 15 tons, recommended is to use two dunnage, two double lines of 6 into 1 inch dunnage. Two of them if required nailed together. For coils over 15 tons, three lines of such dunnage to be used. Steel coils, it is not recommended to use chains and wire rope slings because this can harm the edges. Edged edges which are harmed or edges which are damaged can cause claims. So it is not recommended. If it is necessary to use, then it should be chapped. It should be covered with some rubber packing or something so that the edges are not harmed. Or it could be simply a steel pole through the center of the coil, which is not going to harm the edges for handling. Yeah, we'll come back to steel coils because this is a thing which we need to look very, very carefully. Coils is absolutely a subject we need to actually pick up separately. Steel coils. So when you're doing this one, when you're carrying steel, one important thing is that you will refer to the Code of Practice for Cargo Stowage, or maybe your own ship's cargo manual, CSM. That will tell you how the cargo can be carried, the cargo securing manual, before you actually start lashing and you start securing steel. And maybe your owner has got his own requirements. If it is a regular carriage of steel cargo, the owner might have written something in the SMS, or SMS may have incorporated some planning or storage instructions. But no doubt that contents of the cargo securing manual for that particular vessel will contain about lashing points, securing, etc. So CSM has to be referred to. This is one of the precautions you can add for loading steel, to refer to CSM for that vessel. Approved CSM. ये लिख देना, approved CSM. This is important. Cargo store is with a low center of gravity. So one thing, it will exert high level of stress on the ship structure, including tank top. And then, of course, there could be limitations as to up till what level or up till what height you can load this cargo, because of the heavy cargo, the heavy density cargo. And obviously, never volumetrically full, but by weight full. Means you reach the load lines even though hold may be only 1/4 full, or just about 2 level high. But because of the heavy density, lot of weight, the load line is already reached. But the ship is not volumetrically full by any standard. So high level of stresses can be resulting, including the concern regarding GM. Crane can make the hold substantially full when loaded full deadweight capacity, but a full deadweight capacity of the load of a steel will be reached with much of the cargo holds empty. Full deadweight load has been reached for steel cargo with the hold itself abhi empty hai. Empty in the sense, relatively speaking, if you are comparing with a crane loading, the hold is still empty. In which case the vertical center of gravity of the cargo store will be very low. This can result in high GM. Center of gravity low, metacentric height तो अपनी जगह पे है, so GM can be a very high quantity, which means basically a stiff shape. That is also okay, stiff shape, no problem. Only thing is the riding moment will be a concern. Means the time period of the roll will be short. So riding moment is going to be influenced, and when the vessel is healed, she will return back to her original upright position very, very quickly. Time period of the roll very short. This is going to cause concerns regarding not only, you can ignore the part where the ship's people are in some kind of uncomfortable position. Okay, chalo usko chhod do. We don't care much about that. But what you are concerned with is the short time period of the roll is going to render accelerating forces on the lashings. enhance enhanced accelerating forces on the lashing, and the lashings might part because of the stress they are undergoing on a stiff shape. I remember on a handy size bulk carrier that I worked with full steel cargo loaded, GM something like 6 point something meters, 6 or 7 meters. The roll period, time period of the roll was about 7 to 8 seconds. Same ship when loaded with timber, GM very adequate, no problem at all. And roll period was something like 16 to 17 seconds. एक पालने की तरह, like a very comfortable. Same ship, I'm talking about the same ship. Once loaded with steel, another time loaded with timber. So high GM is going to render stiffness or stiff ship, and this is going to cause a concern by short rolling period, which can put accelerating forces on the lashing. They can part also. So in these cases, what you will have to do is to reinforce lashings, maybe take more of them. This will result only if you have planned it. If you have calculated and planned, then you will come to a conclusion that you have to take extra lashings because of this issue about the high GM. Ship with a high GM results in a shorter roll period, even in moderate weather conditions. Not necessary that the weather is adverse, even in moderate condition of the weather, it can result in shorter roll periods. So this is one of the precautions you will mention. This is one of the issues which is addressed for steel loading or steel carriage rather. There have been cases like this where steel cargo was shifted because of excessive rolling, or rather, not only excessive rolling, shorter roll period. Cargo was shifted, so much so that the vessel had to take a port of refuge to restore the cargo. Obviously, the cargo could not be restored at sea, so they had to seek a port of refuge, take assistance from shore cranes to restore the cargo. Lot of money costed. Right? Okay. This is only we have started the discussion. We'll continue. Take a small break, gentlemen. Kit Kat and candidates plus coffee. We come back and meet again at 15:45. Okay. So you will have to take into account weather routing also. When you're carrying steel, you will need to see what is the weather forecast ahead of you so that you can take precautions and maybe reinforce lashings. That can also go as a precaution, listed precaution, weather routing and prevailing weather ahead of you means after the voice starts. Additional lashings, if there is a good chance because you have loaded steel, there could be high GM. So additional lashing should be applied with a very high GM. Proposed loading plan should be discussed in advance. Also, you will need to estimate loaded metacentric height by using the correct vertical center of gravity for loaded steel, because you need to estimate the correct vertical center of gravity VCG of the loaded cargo. That is going to now affect the final GM. Obviously, as we talk about it, you will avoid any slack tanks to create any free surface, etc. So where your fluid GM remains in control. You will need to mark the holes for making the stevedores, understand, like solid flows on the tank top, below the tank top, the DB tank, solid flows. These marks have to be made so that people who are involved with loading are aware of the best load bearing positions. There is no point discussing with them, you will need to mark it out inside the hole. Some more hazards, contributing factors like this. Water causing wetting of cargo, improper cargo handling leading to damage to the vessel and cargo. Hazard includes cargo movement, shifting during loading, transit or discharge, severe inclement weather, sea condition causing shifting of cargo. Also important is to make sure that you have access to the working inside holds and safety. There should be sufficient safe access inside the hole for people to walk around and maybe reinforce lashings, etc. A survey, preloading survey for ascertaining pre-shipment damage. This is very, very important. Accordingly, you will close the maid's receipt, finally the bill of lading, if you have done a preloading survey. The same remarks will go on the maid's receipt and copied on the bill of lading to prevent against claims. Inherent contributing factors will include condition of the vessel itself, hatch covers, weather tightness, cargo hold access, and ventilation hatch cover and ventilation hatch access, main deck and hatch combings, cargo hold condition. How is it? Ballast, bilge, and piping systems working in order. In fact, it is a good idea to try out the bilges prior loading. It is very important to consider tank top strength and point loading. Although you will use dunnage to spread out, but you need to consider tank top strength. Contributing factor can include improper or insufficient stowage, handling, lashing, or securing methods. These are all precautions to be listed for answering the question. Insufficient routine checking of the lashings and securing during the voyage, which means that you are going to document it, cargo condition inspected, lashings inspected, let us say as a routine 0800 every day and then 1600 twice a day to start with. When you are happy that everything is going correct, maybe you can reduce the frequency to once a day. But initially, once the voyage starts for steel, you have to do it twice a day. That is strongly recommended. You inspect the hold and lashings twice a day. You have to keep into account severe inclement weather and sea conditions which might be encountered, which will tell you whether to reinforce lashings or increase lashings. Also, the possibility that your engine might fail, which will increase the rolling tension time. You have to keep it in account, although it is not going to happen, but you have to keep that also in mind. What happens if the engine fails, if the engine stops, if you are without movement, then of course you are exposed to weather completely. Water damages can result in rust, pitting, or discoloration of the cargo. Water damage. Please remember to prevent against claims for saltwater damages, you need to do a silver nitrate test prior loading so that you are aware that your holds are free from salt, or at least you got it documented that you did test the holds for bulkheads for them to be free of salt. Damages can result affecting the vessel structure and also the collapse of the cargo in holds. You may have other overstored cargo, means you are overstoring steel on some other cargo, which can also suffer physical damage. Misdescription of the cargo is also possible by the shipper. Misdescription to save money, maybe freight, etc. So that also carefully studied. Misdescription, maybe not declaring properly. And of course, the point will always remain steel cargo injury to personnel and crew. CSS code has to be consulted, which is available with you along with the CSM to set standards of practice for lashing and securing of steel cargo. Storage plan, very important as usual, but this will involve maximum allowable strength of the tank top, individual weight of cargo unit, cumulative weight of tiered cargo such as steel coils. This will all figure in your planning for storage. It should not exceed any maximum allowable weights, and also tiered cargo means you are loading coils on top of the other. The strength and load bearing capacity of the lower hopper tanks, which is the bottom part, tank top and the upper tank, that also has to be considered. How much is the load bearing capacity of these spaces? And of course, particular types of steel cargoes will involve different types of precautions. Coils, underdeck steel cargo, which is loading inside the hold. Now this is wrong because it is playing against. You have taken lashing against the bulkhead itself, which is not a good idea. Or like this, you're going to harm the ladder anyway. The ladder could give way. If anything, bad eye should be welded and then the lashing should be taken. This is not a good idea to lash against the excess ladder. This is not a approved strength. It is only to support weight of the person going up and down. But you are trying to lash the cargo against the ladder itself. Steel coils, of course, have got concerns because they are heavy cargo and you're going to load it as tiers on top of each other. That is going to increase the load strength. I mean, it is going to cause concern about distribution of load, which can be done by using thick pieces of wood as dunnage. The rule is to restrict allowable distributed weight of the load, half of it. If it is allowed 10 tons, then you make an effort that you load only 5 tons per meter square. Good rule. Only for the purpose of taking a safety precaution. Further precautions could involve all cargoes to be inspected prior loading. Inspecting officer should enter date, time and document it in the vessel's logbook that he has inspected the cargo hold thoroughly, presently no damages, and all things are as per the cargo hold plan. It is again and again stressed that ensure sufficient tonnage to be used so that the cargo is not compacted against the vessel's hull. You have to keep in mind that the strength of the scantlings of the ship will reduce over a period of years. So this buffer has to be enforced. As the age of the vessel progresses, the strength of the scantlings will reduce. The older the ship, the more caution should be exercised in calculating permissible tonnage. Greater safety margin then should be left for older vessels. If by any chance you increase the permissible tonnage, there is a good chance that tank top plating may be damaged or deformed. When you're saying loading coils for up to 15 tons, the tank top should have tonnages with two double lines of 6 by 1, 15 centimeter by 2.5 centimeter, 6 inch by 1 inch tonnages, two in line, one top of each other. For coils over 15 tons, three lines of such tonnage. By experience, PNI clubs feel that the coil should be loaded with their center cores fore and aft. This one. If loaded other way, they are more likely to shift is by experience of the club. Definitely the coils must never be stored in twin decks, except in very special circumstances where the requirement is to store it in the twin decks. The weight and height ratio will go like this: 10-ton coil 3 high, 15-ton coil 2 high, 15 plus ton coil should be 1 high. But this is not the only thing. The age of the vessel is going to be considered. A lower ratio should be applied if required for a particular vessel which is aged, maybe 15 years, 20 years. Then a lower ratio can be applied, which is not going to stop you from loading. It is only to provide you some margin of safety. Never use mechanical tools for tightening coils. Never use mechanical tools, but you can use pneumatic, yes. But metal strapping bands can be used to secure steel cargo. Tension should be applied uniformly throughout the store, otherwise it is likely to shift if it is not uniform in store tension on the wire ropes. Bulldog grips can be used and are preferred. They are to be applied. We have seen that. I think we saw it. Three bulldog grips fitted on either side of the span screw, and we saw how to secure using bulldog grips. Also, I think it was done in timber loading also. Same rules will apply. Rules will remain the same as per code of safe working practices. You can store in rods, no problem. You can store them, but then it is difficult to work on top. Therefore, after storing in rods, you will need to spread dunnage floor on top to walk across. Cargo shift. of steel has been reported as one of the major causes for loss of ships loaded with steel, the shift of steel cargo, because to restore is almost impossible at sea. So it has been noticed by PNI clubs that in some instances cargo shift has been taken place even in moderate weather conditions. Obviously a huge concern. And the basic root cause will be insufficient lashing or not checked lashing, not monitoring the lashing. Yourself muted, it's a nice music but not really allowed here. It is essential wooden dunnage is placed between plates or slabs so that steel to steel contact is avoided and also friction is increased. Gaps between the plates should be properly chalked before the vessel sails out. Wooden dunnage placed and correct way to do it is to stow from ship side working inwards, from stow winging inwards from ship side, then working away towards the center of the hold. Loading wet steel is a slightly tricky thing. This can result in claims because it will firstly increase humidity in the cargo. It will increase the moisture content of the steel cargo when moist or wet steel is loaded. This can increase or accelerate its oxidation itself, which can result in rust. Rust forms a major claim. There could be some other cargo loaded along with this. If you are loading wet steel, this wet cargo can influence the moisture content inside the hold, which can affect other cargo and result damage to that one. If you are loading during rain, then of course this has got another concern. Packaged or wrapped cargo cannot be left uncovered. Loading operation has to be stopped. The very fact that this is a packed or wrapped cargo product, it means that it is supposed to be protected from moisture. So you cannot leave it unattended on the quay side, and also you will need to stop loading operation. If you do load it, then a remark has to go on the maid's receipt to be copied on bill of lading that wet during shipment or wet prior shipment or cargo blot alongside the key in a rainy period. These remarks have to be carefully captured. Non-packed cargo, non-packed unwrapped steel product may be loaded in light rain, but it has to be again at least definitely put on the maid's receipt. Cargo loaded in light rain, period of rain from so and so time. Also, it should be remembered that light rain is starting, but it can turn into heavy rain. Then, of course, you got a different concern. So it is not a bad idea to stop loading it. Of course, you will have to get in consultation with your cargo owner and charterer, but if it is possible, even in light rain, unwrapped cargo, you can stop to be on the safer side. This is a very important remark, must be kept in mind, wet before shipment. This has to go on the made receipt and subsequently on the bill of lading. Wet before shipment. So that a claim cannot come at the discharge port that the shipment was wetted during carriage. No, it was wet before shipment. This is the remark report. Period of range to be carefully recorded and captured in the deck logbook so that they match with the statement of fact. And of course, all hatches have to remain weathertight during the whole carriage and loading and discharging period. Proper ventilation is to be done as per the recommendation of the shipper or as per declaration from MSDS. Ventilation has to be also carried out. It could be surface ventilation or it could be forced ventilation. So you are looking at issues regarding cargo sweat or ship sweat. Accordingly, ventilation has to be done. If the ship's hull temperature is falling below the dew point, ship sweat may occur. This can be minimized by using regular ventilation. From cold to warmer zone, possible that you will have cargo sweat. Condensation can take place on the cargo itself. Now this is a great concern if it is steel cargo. Cargo sweat can result in damage to the cargo. This will happen when you are moving from cold area towards the warmer area. Let us say you have loaded somewhere in the cold climate of Canada, steel product, or maybe Prague, Germany, and then you are moving towards the east coast of USA for discharge, then you are moving from cold area towards warmer zone. This can result in cargo sweat. Cargo sweat means moisture on the cargo. It is steel cargo. This can result in cargo damage, so much so that you can have claims. So this one can also be avoided by not ventilating. Let the cargo warm up naturally. Avoid ventilation in this case. Have you heard of dehumidifiers? Dehumidifiers. This is normally used for paper products, but it can be used for steel products also. Dehumidifiers. Anybody work with them? These can be used. Dehumidifiers. If not fitted, please remember it is possible to obtain portable ones. Of course, your ship environment allows you. Portable dehumidifiers. Not fitted, but you can use portable ones. Hire them and use these, which helps you to moderate the humidity of the hold. Anybody worked with them? Dehumidifiers, by any chance? And of course, the ventilation log has to be maintained to prevent against claims that you have correctly done it, and temperature record of the home. All necessary measures should be taken and recorded. These records should be available to prevent against claims. If it is not to be ventilated, like we saw in the case, you're moving from cold area towards a warm area, you're not ventilating, then the cargo holds then should be sealed off altogether from the outside atmosphere. If there is any ingress of free moisture inside the cargo hold, you are aware this is going to cause cargo damage. Or increase of relative humidity can cause cargo damages, because this will result in cargo and ship sweat. So although it is said to be steel cargo, it has got concerns mostly because of, as I was told once by a, जी बोलिए, ये की चल रही है आजकल वाइट और पिंक सिंगल सिंगल बर्ड.
अच्छा पूरे फ्लावर्स हैं ये
पूरे
पेटल
फ्लावर्स के सिंगल बर्ड की है.
अच्छा
बर्ड बर्ड ना
तो वो जा बेटर
वो गुजी हुई है. हाँ वो ही सही है. Shubham Singh, you are saying something, you got an issue? 94120
94120
5474
54712
742
742 आपका भी ऐसे शुरू होता था पहले
120 32 700. मेरा तो ये 2005 है जब मैंने स्कूल छोड़ा सबके बाद दिया था मैंने सबसे पहले बीएसएनएल का था फिर वो पोर्ट करा के अब जियो पे करा लिया. मेरा ये है 95 का. हां अब तो बहुत पुराना होगा ना पुराना होगा 95 पहले तो वो डंडी वाले फोन फर्स्ट टाइम तो वही उस टाइम उसके एस्कोटल चलता था उस टाइम बेसिकली हम लोग एस्कोटल के पापा हम तो स्कूल में पढ़ रहे थे और मोबाइल दिलाता उस टाइम. नहीं आप तो दिला रहे होंगे अपने बच्चों को दिला दिया होगा. हम तो बच्चे से पहले ले लेते हैं. अगर पैदा होते मोबाइल पे पैदा हो रहे हैं आजकल.
मैं आपको मैसेज भेजूंगा मेरा नेट खत्म.
हाँ जी डन. There was some discussion, I don't know, maybe some other subject. So if you are done, we can continue. And then I request, keep yourself muted. Ajay, keep yourself muted, gentlemen. Sorry, candidates, because otherwise it creates a disturbance. This one we have seen, no problem. We are looking at hot roll and cold roll. Cold roll finished and hot roll further processing. Then of course there is an important subject regarding storage of steel coils, which I am going to pick up separately altogether because a lot of questions have occurred regarding steel coils. This is a general idea how steel coils are lashed together. We are going to see what are different types of steel coil lashing, but not today because I want to complete this in one go. These are only examples. This is actually called key coil, which is lashing together. Key coil. Kilo, Eco, Yankee. Key coil. This one and this one. Coils. For candidates who have worked on bulk areas, you can realize this is a corrugated bulkhead. And where will this be found? Port starboard or fore and aft? Corrugated bulkhead. This is the corrugation, conventional bulk area. And where will this be located? The corrugated bulkhead, whether it will be located in the forward, aft, or port and starboard. I think can be easily answerable by a person who has worked on bulk areas. These are normally corrugations are found on the fore and aft bulkheads. So we are saying that these is the fore and aft, maybe the forward part or the aft part of the bulkhead, and the coils are placed with their axis. The centers placed fore and aft. This one. Turnbuckles, wire rope lashings, both can be used and are used for lashing coils. This is called Olympic lashing. Where the wire ropes are running like this and then tightened using turnbuckles. You can draw the sketch because this is asked sometimes what is Olympic lashing of steel coil. So, as far as the coils are concerned, they should be stored across the ship on dunnage with their axis fore and aft. Wedges are used to safely locate coils. Base coil should be loaded from ship side inwards to the center. So you start from the outboard and move to inboard. On the other hand, wire coils should be stored vertically with their axis fore and aft stored vertically. This is an example of the number one hold having loaded steel coils is squared out, means the dunnage has been used, dunnaging, the wood has been used to square it out against the bulkhead. Here. Dunnage is used to create frictional resistance and spread the load, both for increasing frictional resistance and spreading the load. You have to ensure ship that dunnage is laid properly. Plates should be stored fore and aft, dunnage running athwartship between each tier. So plates are there, 3-4 tiers are there, no problem. Store them fore and aft direction and dunnage in each tier. So it should start from one side and move towards the center. And one of the precautions can be to make a detailed log of the cargo operations, including how and where the cargo was stored in the quayside, how the cargo arrived at the berth, what was the weather condition, and what was the cargo apparent condition on loading. Wet before shipment, mill scale on top of the cargo. You understand what is mill scale? Mill scale. MILL, mill scale. Are you familiar with this term, mill scale?
No.
Okay, I'm looking at this term. It is called mill scale. This is very easy to explain because it is called like that, but actually speaking, if you remember, at any piece of steel, if you see a small powdery form, small powder like rust, it is not rust exactly, it is a powder form. If you rub your fingers over it, you can see it on your hand. This is called mill scale. It is actually the start of rust, a powdery kind of thing which you can find before the rust starts. It is mill scale deposit. This is actually also a no-no as far as steel cargo is concerned. So this also has to be carefully recorded if you see mill scale on the cargo itself before you load. So when you're talking of mill scale, maybe you have noted down on the bed sheet, mill scale deposit seen on the cargo prior loading. And of course, the normal precautions will include checking the weather tightness of the hatch covers, testing with ultrasonic equipment, the best method, and also after loading and closing, you again test it to make sure that there is no chance of water ingress, weather tightness. Dehumidifiers are strongly recommended for steel loading if loading in winter condition or cold condition and then passing on to summer or warm condition. Then instead of ventilation which is prohibited, you can use dehumidifiers to dehumidify holes. As I said, if the dehumidifiers are not fitted on board, you can use portable ones. Depending on your shipowner, how serious he is about the cargo damage. You can use portable dehumidifiers. It is freely available on hire. Record the daily dew point temperatures of hold and outside air. Ventilate if dew point of the outside air is less than the dew point of the hold air. I am talking of the dew point, not talking of temperature. Please note, dew point of outside air is less than dew point of the hold air, then you can ventilate freely. This normally happens when cargo loaded is in warmer condition for delivery to a port or passage through a colder region. Then you will ventilate freely. Do you understand this point? I mean, are you okay with this one? Ventilate when the dew point of the outside air is less than the dew point of the hold air. Do you understand this clearly? Why should it happen? See, let us say the dew point of the outside air, atmosphere air, is, let us say, something like 6 degrees Celsius. Outside air, dew point is 6 degrees. And the dew point of the hold air, since we are talking of dew point of the outside air lesser than the dew point of hold air हम कह रहे हैं is having a dew point of 12 degrees Celsius. Now, when you introduce outside air into the hold air, into the hold, it will not be cooled below its dew point. Therefore, it will not condense. ठीक है जी. But temperature, sorry, these records have to be maintained for purpose of claims. So we are not done yet because we need to go to coils. But for the time being, we will stop for time being. Are you having any query, question for this session? Anything to raise? Okay, if you're not having anything so far, then you can respond to the chat box. For time being, I'm done.